This is Destination Film, where I travel to a famous city and try and shoot a film there. This is what happened. This month I went to Miami, Florida, drove a fast car and got a chainsaw in a hotel. This week's Destination Film is the most ambitious I've ever tried. I have always dreamed of going to Miami, and not just shooting there, but recreating some of my favorite films and TV shows. For me, this is the infamous chainsaw motel room from Scarface and the In the Air Tonight Phil Collins driving montage from Miami Vice. So to get from Burlington, Vermont, which when I flew was minus 20 degrees Celsius, to Miami, Florida, which was in the high 20s Celsius, you cannot fly direct. You have to go via New York City, via Atlanta, and often you only have 20 minutes to change planes, which, if you sit in the back and people take their time getting out of the plane, can be a little hectic. Miami is a city that really lives up to its reputation. It really does have its own unique vibe, its own culture, its own aesthetic, and its own unique feeling of hustle. Miami isn't just a huge American city. It is also a cultural and financial center of Latin America. A ton of the Latin American TV shows are shot in Miami, as well as most of the big music videos for Spanish language artists, and a ton of Spanish language commercials that will never be screened in the US. Now, you don't need to speak Spanish to make a film in Miami, but if you don't speak English, it's probably the one city where you can make a living making films. So, down to business. My first shoot was to try and recreate the famous In the Air Tonight scene from Miami Vice. If you don't know it, Tubbs and Crockett drive around looking fabulous in their Ferrari. I got on Turo and rented a 2022 Chevy Corvette. This is a absolute beast of a car. Rear engine, 500 horsepower. It cost me all of $185 for 24 hours. I picked it up during the day, drove it around to kind of get the feel of it, and then experimented with different camera rigs, ways to get the shots that I wanted, obviously without damaging the car and still being safe enough to drive on public roads. I found that the Canon R5C with the 24mm 1.8 at 3200 ISO gave a very clean image in the night lights of Miami. I had one Nanlite Pavo tube just inserted in between the dashboard and the windshield, just to give some ambience so that it didn't fade to complete black in between streetlights. I got quite a lot of camera shake when I either accelerated or applied the brakes, but in between, if you keep the actual movement of the car quite smooth, you can get some really great footage. To get the more exotic wheel shots and the over-the-roof shots, I used the Insta360 camera on its extendable pole. I was able to get these while I was driving at low speeds. I did some stabilization in post, and the shots turned out great. I also aimed the camera straight up and got these overhead palm tree shots. And the whole thing cut together gives more or less what I wanted. Yes, it is hard shooting and filming yourself in an expensive sport car on a busy street. And if I had more time and more crew, I probably could have shot a whole scene like this. The next day I had the Scarface shoot. I found a hotel room which looked more or less identical to the one that they used in Scarface. The actual original Scarface hotel is now a CVS. I realized from my previous projects that people need a lot more time than you often think to kind of get together, put things on their schedule, and arrange their lives around your shoot. It would be great if you just touched down in a strange city and then everyone is instantly there, but this isn't the case. So I used a couple of weeks lead time in this occasion to put a breakdown up on Backstage. I got about 60 or 70 applications. I hired a couple of really great actors, Sherry and Natalia. I had a third person drop out the day of. But luckily, our BTS shooter was able to bring his girlfriend along, and she could be the woman with the Mac 10 on the bed. Lighting and blocking in such a small space when you can't boom lights above people is challenging. It was a cloudy day with the sun going in and out behind clouds, so I couldn't really use available light, or at least not depend on it. I used the Axoon Cineview to stream the HDMI feed from the camera to an iPad so I could actually see what I was doing as I was blocking the actors and moving around the set. Nanlite Forza 150 was our key light through a dome, and I used two of the 2-foot Pavo tubes as backlights, and another one in the bathroom here to turn it the shade of green that wasn't actually there. For audio, I used the Saramonic Blink 500 kit. These are small little mini lavs that connect to a receiver that you mount on the camera and allow you to get stereo audio from 2 feeds simultaneously. Even in the very signal-dense environment of Miami Beach, it came through great.
Okay, hey, calm down. No worries. I just want to know who I'm doing business with.
Because I was playing producer, director, cinematographer, and gaffer on this shoot, I opted to shoot most of it on a tripod so I could be free to move around within the shot. We used the Benro BVX18, which is a travel carbon fiber tripod. It has a high payload and is great for heavier cameras, but you can easily dial down the resistance and use it for mirrorless cameras like the R5C. We shot a master, then individual close-ups. Then when the scuffle happens, I did a couple different angles, as well as some inserts on the drawer, the gun, the zip ties. I'd originally planned to drive to Home Depot and buy a chainsaw, but didn't quite get around to it, so I just used sound design in the edit to give the feeling of it. We didn't really have any time to rehearse, and it made it a lot easier that this was a homage to Scarface and that everyone involved had seen the films, so people immediately got the tone of it and what's supposed to be happening. I've enjoyed shooting in all the locations I've gone, but Miami was the first one where I actually really enjoyed being there. Miami is definitely somewhere I would go back to, not just to shoot, but actually to spend some time and get to know the city. One thing to be aware of is that while it has very mild and warm, beautiful winters, in the spring and summer, Miami has a lot of rain, being subtropical. Storms can appear at a moment's notice. One thing that was interesting to hear was that because Miami Beach is such a tourist destination and they make so much money from the flow of tourists that come through there, that they're more reluctant than other places to grant film permits and shut down streets, just because their lifeblood is the tourist trade, and anything that affects that is going to have a hard time. Thank you very much to our sponsors for making this series possible: Aksoon, Saramonic, Benro, Tenba, and Nanlite. Links to all the gear I used is in the description. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.